Imagine an underwater kingdom experiencing an economic boom. Citizens are wealthy and demand is high. But if you look closely at the seabed, you'll spot a problem. The harvesting operations are completely crowded. The kingdom has physically run out of resources to expand its production of coral and pearls. The ruler of this kingdom has 5 main macroeconomic aims, exactly like a real-world government: achieve economic growth, maintain full employment, keep prices stable, balance international payments, and ensure a fair distribution of income. But right now, the ruler's usual strategy isn't working. Normally, they might try to stimulate the economy by giving citizens more money to spend. However, because the kingdom is already operating at its maximum productive capacity, throwing money at the citizens fails to create more goods. The workers physically cannot harvest another pearl, no matter how high the demand gets. Instead of creating more coral and kelp, this excess demand simply causes inflation. Buyers start outbidding each other for the exact same amount of goods, skyrocketing the prices of basic necessities. Physical output sets the hard limit on the kingdom's wealth, regardless of how much currency is circulating in the markets. To fix this, the ruler has to abandon short-term fiscal policies, like government spending to boost demand, and pivot to an entirely new strategy. They need supply-side policy. These are long-term strategies aimed directly at increasing the maximum productive capacity of the economy, represented here by an outward shift of the production possibility curve. You achieve this expansion by improving either the quality or the quantity of your factors of production, the land, labor, capital, and enterprise available to the economy. If you're preparing for an exam, keep this distinction clear. If a government wants to influence total spending, it uses fiscal tools. If it wants to increase the economy's ability to produce, it uses supply-side tools. To achieve growth now, the kingdom must physically expand its production borders, moving past the simple manipulation of spending power. To shift that aggregate supply, our ruler deploys 2 main categories of policy tools: interventionist and market-based. Interventionist policies involve the government taking an active role, for example, investing in education and training. By building underwater academies to teach advanced kelp farming, the government directly increases the quality of its workforce, making labor highly productive. This training also targets structural unemployment, equipping citizens with the specific skills required by modern industries. A second interventionist tool is spending on infrastructure and technology. The kingdom builds fast current transport lanes and deploys robotic harvesting crabs, massively increasing the quantity and efficiency of their capital goods. Then, the ruler switches to market-based tools, which focus on reducing government interference. By deregulating the harvesting industry and clearing away strict quotas, the government encourages fierce competition among producers to be as efficient as possible. Finally, the ruler implements tax cuts. Lowering corporate taxes on pearl businesses leaves those companies with more profit, giving them a direct incentive to reinvest that money into new equipment and better operations. Together, these interventions raise the kingdom's production ceiling, enabling output levels that were previously unattainable. We can translate this success into economic theory by looking at the long-run aggregate supply curve. As the kingdom's productive capacity grows, the entire LRAS curve shifts to the right. That rightward shift directly maps to 2 major macroeconomic goals. It represents sustainable economic growth, and because more goods are being produced, it creates long-term employment across the kingdom. At the same time, cost-push inflation is reduced. The robotic crabs and the newly deregulated markets have significantly lowered the actual cost of harvesting, keeping prices stable for consumers. It even improves the balance of payments. Because the kingdom is now efficiently producing high-quality, cheaper goods, they can export massive amounts of pearls to neighboring kingdoms, improving their trade balance. Shifting the aggregate supply curve outward is the unique mechanism that allows an economy to achieve growth and employment without simultaneously triggering inflation. But there is a catch. Unlike fiscal stimulus checks that boost spending overnight, supply-side policies are not quick fixes. They require immense patience. Economists call this the time lag. It takes years to just plan and build a fast current transport lane. It takes years for a student to enter an academy, graduate, and join the workforce as a highly productive engineer. Then there is the financial cost. Interventionist policies like building those schools and robotic crabs place a massive burden on the government budget, creating a high risk of a budget deficit. Market-based policies carry their own risks. Cutting corporate taxes starves the government of necessary revenue, and policies meant to incentivize labor, like cutting unemployment benefits so people are forced to find work, can severely widen income inequality. Governments face a brutal political trade-off. They have to absorb immediate budget pain and public criticism today in exchange for an economic reward that might not materialize for a decade. Even with high costs and significant delays, expanding capacity provides the structural foundation required for long-term economic growth. This chart shows exactly why. As the aggregate demand curve shifts rightward to 82, the aggregate supply curves shift right simultaneously. Because new supply perfectly matches new demand, the price level stays horizontal. When capacity grows in line with spending, output increases without inflation. And here is a final rule to remember for your exams. Supply-side policy measures always seek to increase aggregate supply. They never try to reduce it. Manipulating demand is a quick fix to stabilize today's economy, but expanding your capacity to produce is how you build tomorrow's.